How are you more nervous now as a coach than you were as a skater, or how
No,
are the emotions different?
they're just different. To be honest, I use a lot of the same tactics to prepare, um, like visual training, and but it's just a little bit different. So my athletes, hopefully, I've prepared them well. My team and I have prepared them well at home. And when they get here, I kind of try and figure out what each of them needs in the moment. So I use my visualizing skills for the coach that I want to be. And for me, I'm a very passionate, competitive person. So most of the time, that means having very clear, um, simpler thoughts and clear messages. And then also the biggest thing that I learned from Patrice is just calm energy. Yeah, when you're going into these high pressure moments and you've done all the work, the biggest thing you want to look back and see your coach has your back and is there for you. So I really make sure the athletes know that. And but it's a different feeling as they perform. Obviously, it's so intense when you're skating. Because you have to cue on every single thing. For me, it's as a coach, you're learning. So try to enjoy the moment, but also as they compete, they kind of the training exposes itself. What could we do better? Where do we go? Kind of compared to the field, compared to what our end goal is. So I find the competition as a coach such great feedback, such great information that I have to be quite sharp. So I don't find I get as lost in the moment because I have to be on my toes.
Um, how soon after retiring did you actually sort of fully start coaching?
Fully start coaching, I'd say it was about 3 years.
Hmm.
Luckily, I had a couple of years retirement after 2014 as well.
Yeah.
But so I kind of knew what I was expecting, and my experience at I.AM changed my outlook
Hmm.
on coaching and as well on figure skating and wanting to be involved. Patrice May, France Roman, and the coaching staff there, Sam Chouinard, Gigi, they changed my life, and they changed how I felt about the sport, and they empowered me uh, to be my best self and learn what that is and who that was, and it inspired me to want to do that for other people. So it wasn't that long after we toured, we did all that. Mary France, Patrice were always very good role models for us. So they kind of given me that, like, you got to go and tour, enjoy. Tess and I wanted to celebrate together.
Hmm.
But not very long after, 2 3 years after, we kind of started thinking, because we'd already retired once and done tours, and we were doing a show and just looked at each other and we're kind of like, this isn't the same, like we both had other projects that we were putting on hold. Her getting her MBA and working for Deloitte, and for me, the skating school. And so, as much as we miss each other daily, it was time to move on
Hmm.
and and not perform anymore. And then that, for me, kind of allowed me to start coaching and really dive in. Luckily, my family already had a skating school, and they had already been training a lot of the athletes I work with today, and then the collaboration with I.AM really came together. So I came in at quite a high level, so it was exciting right from the beginning.
How did that collaboration come about?
Mostly just support from Dice Academy in Montreal. The I think for this coaching team, they're so sophisticated and they do what they do so well. It's a big honor for me to call them colleagues, but I really still, in many ways, see them still as my coach and uh, my coach is. And I think for them, the coaching doesn't stop when your career stops. They
Hmm.
always want to inspire, and now we inspire each other a little bit more. And they're really great at not just coaching me anymore, but allowing me to find my own feet. So after we were done skating, they just continued to coach, and I was talking with Patrice, and they had me come in a couple of times, and their energy at their rink really inspired me, and Patrice had this idea to try and multiply what they had created in Montreal, and if we're doing what we say we're doing at the academy, the age of it is, some of us should be coming into maturity, and hopefully we can create better skating schools throughout the world and kind of make the footprint of the movement a little bit larger. So when he said that to me, it fired me up. And you know, I wanted to really do my own thing, but I would have done my own thing, I think, in Montreal if I hadn't met my wife um, and miss my family and all of that stuff. Like, I still think my home is in Ontario. So, but professionally, it was a little bit upset because I would have loved to be beside them in Montreal and join forces. And then when they came up with this idea and we started to talk about it, and I had kind of been thinking of it as well, like, hey, is there any way we could have a partnership? And Patrice kind of took it one step further and had this idea of it being a campus of our I.AM schools. And so it kind of came very naturally. We were building it for a long time in the background before we actually launched. And yeah, so it was, we're still learning. We're still young, you know. What they've built has come over many, many years, but they get a lot of SOS phone calls, and even just to share resources helps us a lot. Dance coaches and the professionals, like having Sam Schrenard in a couple weeks ago, really helps our kids. And there's just a certain environment, and it's hard because we want to be our own, but what they do so well. So we model a lot of the things we do after them as well.
Your first sort of, I guess, big coaching team that came to you after you became a coach was Christina and Anthony.
Yeah.
How did sort of they approach you, and what was that sort of communication like?
Yeah, they kind of came. They were looking for a new training environment, and they approached both Patrice and myself, and we were, you know, Patrice and his relationship with U.S. figure skating, already working with the top 3 teams in the country, top 2 teams in the country now, and you know, we were trying to decide where there was enough room for them, and that was before MIDA was up and running, and so we had this idea that they could kind of be the leaders of our school with the help of the Montreal staff. So we created this collaboration, which is what we see the whole movement being, all about collaborating and different people and a combination of different people. And I think what the most powerful and enlightening moment this year for me was, you know, bringing in Madison and Adrian, seeing them now kind of taking flight, taking ownership, really helping our athletes, and then going to Montreal, seeing Guillaume choreographing and working with so many athletes. What a great opportunity for us to try and expand. And so it's been pretty cool to see all of that happening. But Christina and Anthony, yeah, they kind of threw us into the game right away in Ontario, and we love working with Christina and Anthony every day. What they bring to the school, and their competitiveness, and their willingness to learn. You know, they're already accomplished skaters, but we're trying to rebuild what they're doing, just to get a maturity and take them to the next level. And they're all in. And you know, there are some days when I think, oh man, should you be trusting me with this? But we come into the lab every day together, and we try and be our best. And because of that, I find the job of working with them extremely rewarding.
You have a few other Canadian teams as well,
Yeah.
like Sales and Wamstika,
Yep.
Henson Liquors. You've
Yeah.
recently had Alyssa Robinson and Jacob Ports
Yes.
move to you.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about sort of them, their training, what they're up to?
Absolutely. So, you know, Haley and Nick here at Skate America is Skate America, Jesus. Sheffield, anyways. What's it called? MK Dance, Cup
Yep.
of China, whatever we're
One of
at.
them.
But to be at a Grand Prix is big for them. They need to get in with the best of the world. They're in Canada. We have a thick middle field, and
Yeah.
they're amongst that field, and they're looking for ways to to make a splash. So, yesterday was quite disappointing for them. They didn't want to be in that position. They're looking to fight back today. But, everything for them is they're, as well as Christina and Anthony had to do a lot last year, they're redefining themselves, trying to push themselves to go in different directions, even though they skated for a little bit longer in terms of their age. And but now they need to really challenge themselves to kind of break through. So it's not easy, when you get into this arena at the Grand Prix, everyone's good. So we'll be hoping to have a breakthrough performance today, and then Lissa and Jake. We're very pleased to get the call from them. Alyssa is from down the road from me.
Oh, wow.
About an hour down the road, but down the road in southwestern Ontario. So, and she was in our synchro program at the Ilderton Skating Club before she ended up out west and skating with Jacob. So we're very happy to have her home. And I think they're an interesting team. They're going to make quite the splash. We love how they come in and they buy in a bit more to our style, and they bring their best every day, which is kind of what we demand of our athletes. And they've been great, and it's been tough. They came halfway through the summer because of schooling stuff at the beginning of summer, really, but for us, that's halfway through the summer. And they had a couple of performances early in that we didn't think that would be possible, to be honest, because it was just everything was so new and so fresh, and we were like, okay, let's just see how it works out. And it worked out really well in the first couple events, and now we're at a point where we're trying to get them to look more mature, them to really take a step, and because they give us these little really refined glimpses of maturity and speed and power, we want them to bring that to their every performance. And we did an event like a couple weeks ago. We were very happy with how they were performing in practice and the lead up, and the whole goal was to try and make them be quite aggressive. So they did that until the performance. The performance, they still kind of shied away to try and be clean, and of course, which isn't the goal, but really hard for an athlete to try and get away from. So they have some growing to do, but we're very excited about them. And then Nate and Lil, they're
Austria right now.
They're in Austria, and I've worked with them since they're knee high to a grasshopper. It feels like, and very proud of the work my mom and my aunt have done to develop the school, and Sherry and Kara, my cousins, and Justin Trojek, that they've really brought them from the grassroots up, and now we've kind of integrated this team and we're all working together. But we, Maddie and Andrea and I feel very fortunate with the work that they've done to bring them to this level. So for Lil and Nate, it's about getting them exposure this year. They were a COVID Junior Grand Prix team. They were due to have some international experiences, so and didn't get that, obviously, because of the pandemic. So for Skate Canada to send them to Austria was a big deal for them. It's the first international event ever. So then they started out with a bang. They'll be skating like now-ish. And every opportunity that they get, they just seem to kind of organically grow, and we're very, very proud of them for that. And it's little things you forget that the sport teaches you, but as a coach now, I reflect on it much more, and rising to the moment, being good people, but demanding the most of yourself every day. And it's fun to see the kids I've known since they're 13 and 14, and see them to really grasp some of those concepts, and hope that it can serve them well in their life after skating.
Yeah, I know Lily and Nathan have a lot of fans already, and they were very excited when they got an international.
Good, I'm happy for them. They have a certain quality, and they relate to each other really well on the ice, and it's becoming more and more consistent, so that's fun.
How do you decide which programs you choreograph versus having your skaters work with other choreographers? Sorry.
We're still kind of refining that, actually, but it's a team decision, really. So we meet, and we'll decide, and we'll make different decisions. Last year, I kind of oversaw everybody and just kind of pick and was choosing, I guess, and then depending on how it was going, I would make little tweaks. But we strongly, almost everybody on our team really believes in collaborating. So, for our best example of that, I think, is Christine and Anthony's free dance with Madison and Mary France, and
I loved what I saw in practice.
Yeah, I can't wait for you to see today.
Yeah.
And then, like Adri and Maddie and myself, we kind of all had a hand in Phantom with Haley and Nick. So everybody kind of gets a touch, and we all throw ideas around. And then, we kind of, it's not that complicated. We sit and we have a vote. What do we think we should do? What's the best strategy? And then we pick, and I try and steer and give as much guidance as I possibly can from my career. But the goal is to have so good people in the room that the decisions are, maybe not everybody agrees, but we know that we can give certain projects to different people. So that part we're really starting to really enjoy. The first little bit I was quite intimidated by that. Now, as I empower my team and see them really grow and blossom, it's one of the most fun part of the whole process.
How do you feel you're maybe growing as a choreographer yourself?
My choreography style is changing. I was very lucky, I think, to have the influence of Mary France and Roman. I see myself more as the element guy now a little bit, and as well as like, okay, yeah, that's working. Let's try this, and trying to challenge the creative team. And then I jump in and get my hands dirty, on certain projects when I feel inspired. But I think I stepped back a bit this year for some, and then really allowed me to, instead of having to do so many projects, to focus in on certain things and be a little bit cleaner. I was overwhelmed a little bit last year, so I kind of learned that lesson a little bit. And then my choreography style is changing just in how I prepare. So it's a little bit more calculated. I was crazy inspired last year, but it was crazy inspired things that I wanted to do. So learning and Mary France and Roman, I mean, that's why I.AM is one of the reasons they've been so successful, is how they personalize their choreography for each student. And every program is different, and it plays to the strength of that particular student. So I'm just starting to figure out how to use that. I think I have a long way to go. Choreography is one of the things that I enjoy doing, but it isn't a natural strength for me. I really have to work at it, and I embrace that, and I'm very proud of some of the product that we're able to create. But I also get a huge sense of relief having Adri and Kara and Sherry and Maddie in the rink. I can just literally cruise over and be like, this count of 8 is killing me. Yeah. And then they seem to be able to like wave their wands, and it's not like, why didn't I think of that? It's like, yes, we have a sweet team.
Do you have a particular style you prefer choreographing?
Most of the styles I prefer, I haven't been able to do yet. I think more of the classic ice skating stuff. And then a bit more passion driven. I think we'll get there as our athletes mature.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm more of the, like, I like the classic skating style, but then I also really like the bit more modern, the athletes relating to each other, being able to tell a story, kind of cat and mouse, back and forth. So that's my strength, I think. I always really dove into that as a performer. We get to work with the best woman in the world, Tessa, and so when we got into those energies, man, it was so much fun. So helping these athletes kind of create their own and how they play off each other. Obviously, it's a little different sometimes, but I think when we have that interaction and it's more playful is when the product is the best. I won't say I'm doing my best work, because my style mostly is exposing what lives within the athletes. I don't think that when I work with Mary France, like, she's a genius. She's able to switch things and change things, and has a unique perspective. And, she works like hell to have this. I think that's what people don't understand. She works for it. She puts a lot of prep time in. But there is a certain touch. It's like this. She just understands the speed of the game. But it was even her. It was her who convinced me that no, you have to awake it from within the kids and let them take ownership. And especially when we get to the elite level, the kids in their 20s, like, they've all grown up TikTok dancing, and they're very, they want to be involved. They would like the creative process more and more. So we have to empower them to take ownership of their own work.
How did Madison and Adrian approach you?
I approached them. We had Christina and Anthony, and Haley Nick came halfway through the year, and we're hoping our school continues to grow. I worked with Madison, so I worked with Madison the last couple of years on their free. I felt like in that project more of a passenger, just that got to point out the obvious things, and they kind of ruined choreographing for me for a little bit because they're so damn good. So I could be like, I want you to try this, and it wouldn't like necessarily even make sense. But Maddie and Zach, they can make anything, and then the first time it's gold, and you start to think, holy shit, maybe I am a great choreographer. And then you work with a 10-year-old and 12-year-old, and you're like, oh no, there I go, I'm back again. So when I was working with Madison, I would skate over to Patrice and Mary France as we're trying to grow this academy, and just be like, Maddie and I, we get each other. And she's a genius, and she works through things, and I kind of said, I want her in London, without saying. And then at the end of Adri's career, because we grew up skating together, Adri and I worked with him only twice, and I saw a big change in Adri, a big mature. How much he'd matured in that year, how he matured in his performance, how he matured in how he handled himself at the rink, and his passion. I always knew. So they're a little bit of a dream team for me. So I made a list. I won't tell you who else is on the list because I'm hoping that they'll end up on our team as well one day, but they were the top of my list. So it was another dream come true moment. It goes at I.AM Ontario, it goes our wish list is to be in I.AM Academy, which happened, and to have Maddie and Zach at our campus. So we had our two first wishes. So we're hoping for a third, but it was, they were all in as soon as we talked about it. Now we wanted to be sure, and Madison still performs, and Adri, we've made that very clear. If he wants to perform, he should. So they have that clause too. As they discover themselves, they're allowed to do that. Let me just check to make sure I'm good. Yeah, okay.
So this season, a lot of changes have happened with the rules. What's your opinion on there being no pattern in the rhythm dance anymore?
Yeah, I go back and forth on that. What I've been saying, what I said yesterday in the meeting, and I tip my cap to the dance tech committee. They're asking us, so trying to pull everyone and to create work collaboratively anyways, and create a nice dance event that everyone likes. But I think I don't mind it. Like, I don't think there's a major flaw right now. I miss pattern dances a bit. The problem with pattern dances is how they're judged. So I like pattern dances because of the old school pattern, pattern on the ice, speed, dance position, like the older style of ice dance, and nobody really seems to care about that anymore. So I always wonder, why are we keeping it around for key points when it's not really the spirit of the dance? But I do miss it in the program this year. I would remove PST and put pattern dance back in. I thought the choreo step is fun. I think we can change the pattern to make it even more fun. But we need to be a little bit more exciting for the audience, and I think the choreo step has done that. When people turn on, and again, like, everyone has access to good dancing, and so to have a little breakdown moment in our program, I think that's fun.
What are your opinion on the new choreo elements, because they were introduced?
Love them.
Just after you.
I would take more. Yeah, I like the choreo elements. I'm a little jealous I never got to do any of them.
Do you have a favorite maybe?
I like the new jumps quite a bit. I always love choreo lifts. To be able to get. I think we need to open the freedom of the rules as well in the lifts. So, but no, I really enjoy the choreo lifts, and the jumps are kind of like mini lifts. So just to have a sequence of little jumps is great too. So, just to have the freedom to create. I mean, really any of them, the slide, and just I'd like it if they were marked to be a little bit more subtle. instead of like on the big music all the time.
Yeah.
But we're finding you got to battle with what scores well and what like completes a program. So I'd like to see a little bit more of that. But other than that, I really like the choreo element. I think it's appropriately marked. It's appropriately the amount of points you get is good, and it affects the second mark. It helps you build a program instead of the cookie cutter, which is a tough challenge with this new system. We call the new system this 20 years old.
Yeah. Do you? What's the process like for finding music for your teams?
It's different for everybody. So we don't give music ideas to our teams until they bring some first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so mostly our more mature teams, we discuss the direction we want to go, and we talk about it, and then pretty much we kind of go back and talk as a coaching team and say this is kind of what we think. And a lot of times I'll call Mary France or Roman and discuss things just to double check, especially if I get stuck or even some of the judges and people I really trust. So
Sort of a bigger one, but looking back over your career, what are some of your favorite programs that you've done?
Well, Moulin Rouge came from Tessa and I's Heart and Soul, and with Mary France and Patrice and Sam all collaborating. It's a special one. It's not the most original one, groundbreaking, but it came from our souls, and we love the music, and so that was probably my favorite in the end.
Mm-hmm.
But there are little parts in there, and the programs are so much about the maturity of I guess, the stage of maturing that you're at, and little ones like Waltz Triste and Umbrellas. They have a special place in my heart as well. And also, like we went back into Pink Floyd for our last number because Pink Floyd Free Dance was probably the project that I connected with the most. Felt like a great opportunity, and we didn't get the chance to really train it, deliver it like we wanted. So, it's like that's hard. I mean, it's art, right? So I think depending on what phase I'm in life, I like different ones different at different times. But I think Moulin Rouge, because it's kind of the culmination of all of them into one program, is the one.
What's it like training skaters that grew up being a fan of you and see you as an idol?
I think it's a bit of a challenge actually, because they have to. A lot of them are fans. And naturally they kind of want to be like you and but of course sport is evolution.
Mm-hmm.
They're like me, they're not going to do very well. It was even now it's 4 years out. So getting them to there's a challenge in getting them to believe in themselves, and it's powerful because I can remind them of the stages. A lot of, even the athletes that I train, they see me in 2018 and assume that was me in 2008 or in 1998. And, it's just not the case. And my coaches will tell you that. I should run and get to Haley.
So, stop. Did you have any music that you vetoed from your career that you're sort of
There's a couple pieces that we ended up using. To be honest, Christina and Anthony's Summertime, Tessa and I always wanted to use. We love the score, but we just didn't have the piece to go with it. We also talked about using it for Madison, and when Mary France brought it back on the table this year, and with that first little cool piece, it was kind of one that we had always wanted to skate to and brought it back for the students. But there's a couple of those kicking around, I'd say. Yeah.
Might we see another one in the future for one of your teams?
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. Our teams are developing so much and hopefully maturing day in and day out. So it's tough to tell where they'll end up in a year's time or so.
Do you have the same coaching method for every team, or do you adapt to different teams?
I adapt on certain things. I try my best, anyways, to adapt on certain things. I'm still getting my legs in coaching, but most teams need different things from team to team, and we're an elite sport, so
Mhm.
it needs to be a personalized plan. Not everyone's going to come to conclusions the same way, and so I try and motivate. Mostly, what I do is use what I use every day in competition, so they're not surprised. But
Do you think your time as a skater and longevity as a skater helps you coach a different way?
I think so. Every time, well, it's the same thing with longevity as a coach. Every experience brings lessons and kind of puts more tools in your toolbox that you
Mhm.
can use. So I think so. I really think it does. We were in a lot of situations, can at least understand what the athlete's going through. And I think that's what makes me a bit of a powerful young coach, because it wasn't that long ago. I remember
Yeah.
some of the feelings exactly. So the hard part of that is putting it through the right filter and making sure that it's right, what's right for them, not how I handled it.
Yeah.
Can sympathize with what they're feeling, but then help them come to a solution that's right for them.
With Christina and Anthony had surgery in February, I think he said,
Yep,
and was off the ice for some time.
correct.
You've, I guess, sort of been in the opposite situation.
Yeah, I've been in Christina's shoes.
Yeah.
Yep, a couple
So
times.
did that sort of experience help you with how to help Christina during that time?
It did. Helped me build a plan for Christina.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I will say I was pretty shocked with how little help Christina needed. She handled the time off brilliantly.
Mm-hmm.
She came in, did her work, did a couple extra like projects that filled her cup. Things you wouldn't usually get to do, like whatever that Ice Princess movie thing. She did. I think there were dancers for Sam Chouinard choreographed some stuff, so they were like in the background. And so she was in Montreal for a couple weeks doing that,
Yeah.
but then pecking away, working a lot on her turns, a lot on the. I mean, they came in April of last year, um, May really of last year, and we started to pick things apart and work on everything.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of things that she caught up on in that time when she was off. Some of her turns, and to see her technical scores at this competition reflect that made me happy. But also, just she didn't get crazy about it either. A couple of my experiences, I was like, okay, I'm gonna really go for it, really improve, and while it helped, when Tessa came back, I wasn't supportive, and I was kind of aggressively ready to go. And she was super supportive to Anthony, worked on all her stuff, improved day in, day out. So I thought she really handled that masterfully.
Mm-hmm. You had two couples here. What were your overall thoughts on their performances?
Yeah, I think it's kind of they're very different performances.
Mm-hmm.
For Christina and Anthony, it's their first competition of the year,
Mm-hmm.
so they've been doing really well with Anthony's recovery and his ankle, and but they're stepping in with teams that have competed 3-4 times already, and they are coming off a really frustrating year for them. And so I think it was a big week for them to perform, and filled with quite a bit of pressure. And you start to see some of their maturity come through a little bit, where they relied on their training, focused on the cues that we've been working on at home, and had excellent performances, which is exactly what they did, have been doing in training. Haley and Nick had a bit of a tough week. They were struggling with a little bit of some sickness, but have been training quite well. And this week, it wasn't the skating that I've been seeing at home. It was still strong. There were no major errors, so the people need to remember and understand that the heat of competition can be crippling, and the pressure is much greater than the run-throughs you do day in and day out. So I think they felt that pressure a little bit. We're able to still compete well, at least good, with no major mistakes, but they're missing a little bit of the magic that makes Haley and Nick. Their connection, speed across the ice is a big one, and then just a little bit of the finish on their elements. They're fantastic lifters, but they're starting to understand how to move on the ice as well throughout their footworks, and particularly him. And this week, under the pressure, we kind of went back a little bit to bit square movements and not letting the glide of the blade be effortless. And ice dance, you really pay the price for that. And so, yeah, it's a great exposure for them to be at a Grand Prix. Just like last year, and every time they get out, they learn more and more. And so we're sit down and take the lessons from this one and rebuild for the next couple competitions.
Do you set goals for your skaters each season or maybe each competition?
We set goals. The skaters set goals. I help them. I
Mhm.
kind of see myself as the consultant that, and they're in charge. They're kind of driving the ship as it might be. And so yeah, we set goals and we renew those goals often and share them with the team. And I make sure that they're very clear and honest with their team and themselves on what their goals are.
Yeah.
So, but it would be different goals than you would think. So, very rarely, or it's not most of the time, it's not on placement or comparison. It's more so on performance or getting levels or points. But I mean, you could have seen a little bit of that as well too with Haley and Nick. We certainly and they certainly don't see themselves as that far behind the other Canadian team, and they were yesterday, and they didn't have a great skate, but I think it kind of deflated them a little bit. And we'd be looking for them to respond a little bit better the next time that happens, and hopefully that didn't get the best of them. We'll be doing kind of a recap and seeing it. That's the part I love about coaching, right? You get those lessons. They're not always. Sport is a beautiful thing. It's not always pretty. It's not always triumphant, but most of the time it gives you what you deserve or what you need. And if you can take what you must from it, then you'll be have a great opportunity to grow.
What are your thoughts overall on this competition, the crowd here?
I'd like to come back every year, if I'm being honest. Britain did a really fantastic job. England and the city of Sheffield of hosting this event. The crowd was electric. I kind of like the smaller venue. Bring everybody was glued to their or in their seats ready. It was full arena every event, and that's brought a certain amount of energy to the building. And I think still recovering from COVID, with people not used to being skating in front of groups. Like some of these young athletes, you forget they came up during COVID, so they haven't had these big moments. Like I think of Lila and Lewis in front of a home crowd with a packed stadium. I mean, that's a pretty cool moment for them. So we really enjoyed our time here in Sheffield, and it says a lot, I think, about the British ice dancing fan or the ice skating fan, and happy that they were able to step up and host a Grand Prix.
Let me have a look. I think that's almost everything. I wanted to ask, away from skating, what are the sort of things you do, like to de-stress? Maybe?
Well, I'm doing lots of things now. Away from skating, I'm settling into a bit more of a quote unquote normal life, or at least a rhythm in life. Everyone talks about the transition from being an athlete, and I know I was definitely no different. I never or haven't yet had depression or any of that stuff, but certainly it's just finding your rhythm, right? And what you're gonna do, and even like the first little bit, like I'd have a cheeseburger or a beer and be like, "Ooh, I'm so bad," and then it'd be like, "Wait, no, I'm 35. Like this is very normal." So it's still kind of catching me off guard, that stuff. But I'm very fortunate. I found the love of my life, and we got married earlier this year, so that took up a lot of our time. Yes, thank you very much. And we have a baby girl.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So that has enriched my life in a way that completely you expect and everyone warns you about, but I just had no way of preparing for it, knowing how beautiful it was going to be. And then I play sports. I'm not great at very many of them. I'm on the ice every day, but I still play hockey quite a couple times a week. And then I'm Canadian, so I curl a little bit twice a week now too. So we're busy.
Nice.
We're a busy family.
Yeah.
And then this life of a skating coach feels like it's 24/7 a little bit. So we there's not a lot of extra times left in the Moir household.
Awesome.